Let me tell you a little story about a guy named Ted Cruz. He's a Texas senator. He happens to be running for president in 2016. You might remember that our old friend Ted Cruz voted against providing federal aid after Hurricane Sandy, which affected the northeast of the United States, particularly New York City and the Jersey Shore and surrounding areas. Why did Ted Cruz vote against aid for Hurricane Sandy? He said that the measure was, quote, symptomatic of a larger problem in Washington, an addiction to spending money we do not have. Lewis told us on the bonus show last week about the significant flooding that's been going on in Texas. And now, lo and behold, Senator Ted Cruz, who thinks that federal relief spending is symptomatic of a large problem in Washington, has called for federal relief funding for Texas, which just happens to be his home state, Lewis.
Yeah. Ted Cruz is, we've said plenty of things about Ted Cruz. This isn't the first time this has happened with someone like Ted Cruz. There have been plenty of times where there have been hurricanes, or maybe not hurricanes, but tornadoes and other natural disasters, other floods, where politicians who voted against Sandy aid asked for money. And it's just business as usual.
Let me play for you. Here's a very, very somber and upset Ted Cruz. Let's take a look.
Where the damage there is unimaginable. You look at the homes that were just utterly demolished. Saw a large concrete bridge that the Blanco River took out altogether, picked up two massive slabs of concrete and flung them aside like a paper airplane. This river had an over 40-foot wall of water that demolished everything in its sight. You know, I spent some time just walking along the streets in Wimberley.
That's right. The federal government has no business spending taxpayer money helping people unless they're my constituents, Lewis, in which case, why hasn't Obama already acted?
Do we think that his constituents really don't realize what's happening here? Do they not know about the Sandy thing? Do they think that they deserve this aid more than those who, I don't know. We're talking about Ted Cruz supporters here, so it's hard for me to determine that.
I don't think I wouldn't blame them for not even having the slightest idea. They've been hit by this natural disaster, and they are right to expect that their constituents are going to do what is right. The hypocrisy, the double standard comes in that it's only right when it's for Ted Cruz's constituents. And this is representative of a bigger problem in the Republican Party, right? They're against abortion until it's their mistress who's pregnant. They're against equal rights for gays until their child comes out. Well, actually, sometimes even after their child comes out, they're still not for gay rights, but that's a different story. The party, so-called, of family values and Christianity and morals seems not to understand the concept of empathy until it affects them directly. If only there were a medical term for that, Lewis, where you're not able to feel empathy. It might be a good descriptor of what's going on. Too bad that there's no term for that.
We won't, maybe we just won't say that word. You know, I also think that someone like Ted Cruz is probably betting that he's never going to have to ask for aid like this in a place like Texas. Maybe that crossed his mind when he voted against Sandy aid.
And some people who are angry with him for the vote against the Sandy aid have said, oh, screw Ted Cruz's constituents, no money for them. My concern actually is Ted Cruz's constituents. Just because they have a hypocrite as an elected official doesn't mean that now those affected by the Texas floods shouldn't receive the federal relief aid. That's actually not the issue. It's Ted Cruz who should be punished, not the victims of the flooding.
Of course, yeah. I mean, they deserve the aid just as much as the victims of Sandy. And, I hope they get the help they need.
After the break, I'll give you the latest update on the Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. Check it out. Go to davidpakman.com. There is a banner, an Indiegogo banner on the right side of the page. See what we have going on. More after the break.